And we're back. It's the New York Gun Guys.
What's up, everyone?
My name is John.
My name's Taylor.
Is it Taylor?
Wouldn't you like to know? Your Alexa's listening to us.
Sir, let me see your ID.
Well, how do you know that my ID is real?
Well, I would just, assume that it's real, and then I would check the records.
I don't know, man.
Well, I would assume that it's real, and then I would also confirm that by checking the DMV records. Isn't that how anyone... I would assume it's real.
Yeah.
And then I would also confirm that.
Right. But should you then detain me and cuff me while you do that?
On a car stop?
Well, what we're getting at here, everyone, welcome to the podcast.
Check us out, Facebook, Instagram, NYGunGuys. Is it NYGunGuys? It's NYGunGuys.
Yeah, NYGunGuys.
I don't even fucking know anymore. It's NYGunGuys, all one word. Also, check us out, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, anywhere you can find a podcast. Taylor, we are talking about, as we kind of alluded to, we're talking about this case that happened in Connecticut?
Yeah, it was in Connecticut.
Yep,
so,
you want to give us the rundown, and we'll talk about it?
So this one comes from the New York Criminal Attorney blog. And it was from August 12th, 2021, but it was just kind of interesting because I just kind of stumbled upon it. And the headline of the blog is, "May a police officer handcuff a licensed gun owner while he verifies the authenticity of the gun license?" So this apparently happened in Connecticut, but it shares the same district court. I believe it's the second circuit court. So Connecticut shares the same overarching court as New York,
Right.
so it is kind of applicable in this sense.
Sure. Well, I think this is applicable because has to do with just gun rights in general.
Right. So basically, I'm going to kind of read a good bit of the article here because it's kind of hard to convey what actually happened without going into the specifics.
Sure.
So, in the case of Sukana versus Andrzejewski,
we're butchering the
those
names.
I know.
Not intentional.
Basil Sukana sued a Waterbury police officer who stopped his vehicle one night. The lawsuit was filed in the federal district court for the District of Connecticut. Sukana alleged that when he was stopped, he handed the police officer his driver's license and gun license and indicated that he was armed. Connecticut, you could have concealed carry, just like most of New York. It's kind of where we are.
Right.
The police officer reacted by handcuffing Mr. Sukana while he verified the authenticity of the gun license and while the officer searched the passenger compartment and trunk of the vehicle. That's a big red flag right there. The police officer filed a motion for summary judgment seeking to have the lawsuit dismissed. Among his arguments were that he had probable cause to believe that Basil Sukana was in possession of a firearm without a permit until he was able to verify the validity of the permit. Therefore, police officer Andrzejewski thought he was justified in handcuffing and detaining Mr. Sukana. The court found that this conduct to constitute a de facto arrest. The court strongly disagreed, finding that since it was undisputed that the police officer found out that there was a gun in the car either at the same time or after the officer was given the license, that no reasonable officer could conclude that they possessed probable cause that Mr. Sukana was violating Connecticut law. The court likened the firearms license to a driver's license and concluded that the same way it would be unconstitutional to presume that a driver's license was invalid and to detain the driver until its validity was verified, it must be unconstitutional to presume that a firearms license was invalid to detain the gun owner until it was verified. The court found that a contrary finding would, quote, eviscerate Fourth Amendment protections for lawfully armed individuals.
Okay. Before we get into it, I want to put a blanket statement where we don't know all the facts of this case. Okay. What we don't know is what was the probable cause that this officer had to state that he believed that the card that he was given was not valid. Was the card ripped in half? Was it in two pieces? Was it was the ink so worn away that you couldn't see? These are things that would lead to a reasonable officer.
We don't know that.
Correct. Just going by the information that we have on this article, because we don't have court documents, we have not seen evidence, we have not seen anything like that. But just from a standpoint, just because this was brought up,
right?
Is it okay for you, if you have a license, if you have a firearm and you're carrying, is it okay for an officer to basically detain you, knowing that, or assuming that you have a valid carry?
He detained this individual under the suspicion that he believed the license was invalid until it was verified.
Correct.
But that's basically presuming you broke the law until they could prove otherwise.
Sure.
Which is not really how shit works.
But I don't want to necessarily focus on the facts of this case. We don't have the facts. But this, it brings up a really good argument, right? It brings up a really good situation, which all of us might be involved in one day.
Might be, yeah.
So,
I think that if you are pulled over, obviously certain states have different laws. I actually don't think New York is an informed state, meaning you don't have to tell a cop that you're armed if you get pulled over.
I think we should assume, like, let's take this situation, just assuming that it happened in New York, right?
Right.
We'll go based on like New York laws. I don't know all the every law in New York State,
right?
But I can tell you that, let's say you did have a valid permit, you handed it to an officer. They're not allowed to search a vehicle.
No, because it's not illegal.
Correct.
So
now, I will say, according to penal law in New York State, an officer is allowed to search a vehicle from bumper to bumper if there's a firearm in the car, but that's if it's illegal.
Right. That's if it's illegal.
Correct. So, like, the fact that this guy's car was searched, that's in my opinion, automatic, without knowing anything else, an automatic infringement on Fourth Amendment right.
Right.
The detainment, I'm not too sure, because...
Well, detaining, he handcuffed him. Okay.
But here's the thing.
I know officer safety comes into play, and you have...
Exactly. And detaining is not an arrest.
Right.
Okay? People get detained and handcuffs come off all the time. You have how many people were in the vehicle? We have no idea.
Right.
If there's 3 people in the car, I can pretty much... And there's 1 officer. You're going to take the people out. You're going to handcuff them. You're going to detain them, because that removes a lot of variables. Especially if this officer did not believe that the permit was legitimate, assuming there is a reason why the permit was not deemed as legitimate. We don't know if there really is a reason or if that's just the defense, but...
Right. Yeah, the problem is that you can't just believe something is invalid, because then any form of government ID, any form of officially issued documentation, you have to basically assume
but
is
legitimate. But here's the thing. If you get a license, let's say you do a car stop and you get given a license. If there's something weird about that license, it doesn't feel right. Think about how many licenses this guy has probably seen in his time. Doesn't feel right, doesn't look right. Sometimes licenses look weird.
Right, there's fake IDs out there.
So that's enough to raise a certain level of suspicion where you'd want to confirm that. Now, I'm not saying like you pull somebody over for a taillight, you're like, oh, this license doesn't seem right. Let me pull this guy out of the car. Let me cuff him. No, you go back to your vehicle. You run the check. You make sure everything is legitimate. You make sure this comes back proper.
There's a way to go about it.
Correct. Now, this was escalated, I assume, because there was a firearm involved.
Right.
So did the officer request the firearm from the individual? He refused. Now, do you want to disarm the person, or is it easier to have them step out the vehicle with their firearm still on them and detain them while you make sure that everything is legitimate? That's another factor.
That's an officer call at that point. That's a
But what I'm saying is, we don't know.
Right.
Was this guy disarmed, and then they were like, he's definitely guilty, cuff him up, put him in the back of the patrol car, let him sit there, and he's legit, give him his shit back. I've seen a lot of videos of officers disarming people. Yeah. Legally.
Well, ultimately, the court said that it was a case of de facto arrest at that point, because of the way they detained him, because the way they searched his car, because the way they assumed that he broke the law. So, it gets into a lot of things with gun owners.
Well, here's the thing. I agree. This person's vehicle should not have been checked.
No, definitely
it should not.
No.
I mean, this guy has a case for, his Fourth Amendment rights were violated.
Yeah.
For the search. I don't. Just from reading the article, I don't know if the Fourth Amendment rights were infringed upon with the mere putting on the cuffs.
We don't know the circumstances of why.
Because
but
here's the
I
thing:
don't...
you could cuff somebody, bring them back to the station, and then realize at the station, oh shit, he's not he's a legit, he's allowed to possess or whatever he's allowed to carry. That I would say would be would be a false arrest. No, that's those types of things happen.
Yeah.
That would be a false arrest because that person was brought somewhere against their will, right? But if you're just if you're bringing someone back to your precinct or your station house or whatever, you're telling that person you're under arrest.
Right.
And then you realize later, oh shit, they're not. So you have to do certain paperworks that void that out. But the mere putting on of the cuffs, I'm not sure if that really... Now, if you put on the cuffs, you search the car.
Yeah,
maybe,
that's what the court said was an arrest.
Maybe, but how many times do people get cuffs put on them in their car searched and then they get uncuffed and sent away? You're talking about...
but there's probable cause to search the car in that instance?
There is no probable cause, in my opinion, to search this
based
car.
on what they said. Now, it gets into a lot of what I see online in New York and Long Island especially. Oh, I have to transport a firearm in my car. How do I do it? especially when traveling through New York City, there's things you got to do, or, in the trunk, separate from ammo, locked, whatever. Or am I allowed to keep this gun in X part of my car? Or I'm going to and from the range, how do I go about this? And it brings up many issues because it could happen to any of us. We could be going to the range, get pulled over for a speeding ticket, have the gun in the trunk, and then the officer might see something in the car that indicates that there might be a firearm in the car, like targets and an ear pro, and let's just say anything else.
No, but that's not illegal to have in your car.
No, it's not illegal to have in the car. But again, if a cop tells me, get out of the car, what do you do at that point?
Okay, so there is case law, Pennsylvania versus Mims, that allows an officer, they don't even really need cause. They don't need cause to order you out of a vehicle.
Right.
Okay, so right there and there, if you're on a car stop and an officer orders you out of a vehicle, you have no choice. You have to. It's case law.
Right.
It says you have no choice, right? But ordering you out of the car doesn't mean that they could just search your vehicle.
Well,
it doesn't.
No.
It does not.
I'm just saying.
I'm telling you from a law standpoint. I'm not talking about what officers may do that's illegal.
That's what I'm getting at.
I'm talking to you about from the way I was trained, from the way that the penal law reads. They can order you out of a vehicle. They can also order the passengers out of the vehicle. They can also ask for a passenger ID. That's all legal. That's all case law. They could do that. They cannot search your vehicle, obviously, unless they have permission to do so.
Or probable cause.
Well, permission would be enough probable cause, quote unquote, that would rise to that standard. If there's anything in the vehicle that would lead the officer to believe that there is a firearm, not targets, but ammunition, like a whole round, casing and bullet.
Right.
If there's shell casings in the car, that way, you know how if you have a shell casing on your keychain, technically that could give the officer probable cause to search your vehicle.
Right.
Technically. Or if there's drugs in the vehicle, you could search.
Yeah, obviously.
And the reason why is because drugs, well, it's not super obvious to some people. Drugs give the officer cause to think that what comes along with drugs, right?
Money and guns,
correct. So that would also, drugs and guns give the officer automatic probability to search from bumper to bumper.
Right. But
that's why
if you drive, for example, like a station wagon that doesn't have a trunk and everything's in plain view, what do? Or everything's in a case and the officer's like, what guns are in the case? And you tell them,
well, you don't have to tell them.
No, I know you don't.
You can say there's nothing. The case is fucking empty.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? The officer has to see it. A case, look, you see this mic case? I can have a gun in this case, right? But this being on the back seat doesn't mean that there's a gun in it.
Well, I'm relating it in the way this guy was detained in Connecticut because obviously he told them he had a gun.
Correct.
And he was handcuffed and then his car was searched anyway. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, especially in a state like New York, to where somebody might misinterpret the law and get a little overzealous. And you hear about it all the time, someone busted with arsenal in house. Obviously, they were doing something else.
Right.
But a lot of it is like compliant bolt-action guns, 22s or whatever.
Sure.
It's just a worry from a lot of gun owners.
Right.
I see it all the time on forums.
I think what happened here was an infringement on this gentleman's rights.
Definitely.
I think that he's going to sue, and he'll probably get a settlement, and he should.
Probably.
And hopefully the officer gets training so he knows that he can't do that in the future.
Right.
But the whole thing is there could have been a legitimate reason why this officer in Connecticut thought that the permit was not legit.
Could be. But
was it a Connecticut permit?
Yeah, it was Connecticut.
Okay.
So,
because I can understand he comes from out of state. You have an out of state permit. You're not familiar with those permits. You've never seen it before.
He assumed the permit was not valid before he checked.
But for what reason? That's what I would want to know.
Right.
Which we don't have that answer.
You're not presumed guilty until you're proven innocent. It's the other way around.
Correct.
So it just gun owners constantly think about issues like this.
Right.
We play within the bounds of the law. The law is, especially in New York, is gray in some areas. It's not defined in others, or it's overly harsh in most.
Right.
So we have to then say, okay, what do we do? How do we go about finding out what the right way to do things is? And honestly, I think common sense kind of dictates a lot of things. You're not driving around with a gun hanging out the window, and you're not, for most people, I don't know, but it's just something that you constantly think about. When I go to the range, it's like, well, I have firearms in my car. I'm maybe going to be a little bit more cautious when I drive.
Let me ask you this: because you have actually had a similar experience. How do you feel about being on a car stop? You get stopped by the police. You inform them that you have a firearm. and then they remove you from the vehicle. They take your gun.
I've never been in that situation.
No, but you've been in a similar situation with Hurricane Sandy.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
Okay.
that's why I want to get your opinion. We'll retell the story quickly, just for the people who don't know it.
Right.
But how do you feel about having? And I'm sure you've seen videos. Officer stops somebody for a car stop. They're informed, "Hey, I have a license." Okay, no problem. Step out of the vehicle. Let me see your firearm. They make sure that it's legal, that the gun's not stolen. They run the serial number. They unload it just to make sure. And
But
then,
even at that point,
and then they check with your 10 card or whatever you have to ensure that that's the firearm that's on the 10 card. Is that okay to you? Do you think that's okay? Because technically that's assuming that you're guilty, right?
Right.
Until you're proven innocent.
See,
and
I have an issue with that because if you have the permit, I mean, it depends on what the law is. I don't have a handgun permit in New York. I don't own handguns, so I don't know exactly what the law is. I know on the permits they list all the handguns you have, serial number, make, model, whatever.
They call it a 10 card.
If they want, if the cop says, "Oh, let me see your license," and it's on there, your 10 card or whatever, and then obviously the pistol you have should match that.
Correct.
I mean, and then I think that's
the officers have the right to check your firearm, just like officers do check your, for example, your driver's license, right? They'll take your driver's license. They will run it through DMV database to make sure that the license is legitimate, that you're licensed, that you're not suspended, things like that. Mm-hmm. So officers have the right to do that, but do they have the right to check your firearm as well? They have the right to check your license plate number.
License plate number is something that's plainly visible. You don't have to remove it from the vehicle.
Well, I'm not saying that they're just checking your car for the gun. You're telling them that you have the firearm.
No, I know. If you have it on you, let's just say.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think that they should. I don't know the law. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they should have the right to. But again, the law may be different. The law may say, hey, if you run into somebody with a pistol permit, verify what's on the permit.
That's probably more policy than anything.
Whatever. Yeah,
law guides on what you can charge people, but it's probably policy.
So that's what I'm getting at. It's like, I don't know the rules. I don't know the law. Morally speaking, I think that if you show them the permit, the officer can decide, okay, how do we want to make sure that this firearm is safe during our interaction? Mm-hmm. Okay, it might be easier just to give the whole gun and holster, put it on the hood of the car, just, on the roof.
Right.
Or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a cop.
Personally, I think that there's nothing wrong with an officer. Look, at the end of the day, an officer does have a duty to enforce laws, right?
Right.
And we are dealing with a lot of gun violence, especially in New York City, right?
Yeah.
So is there anything wrong? If you're a legal gun owner, your shit's good.
Well, Is
there anything wrong with an officer just confirming? And it's really not him saying, like, okay, look, now I'm not saying put cuffs on you. I'm not saying dragging you out of a car. I'm saying, okay, we do a car stop. You say, hey, officer, just so you know, I do have a firearm on me. It's on, I carry on my right-hand side. Here's my card. Whatever. Officer goes, okay, no problem. Step out of your vehicle. We're going to make sure your gun is clear and empty while we conduct the investigation. And I'm just going to make sure that the serial number on your firearm matches the serial number on your 10 card. Is there anything wrong with that?
In a state like New York where the information's there, I don't agree with it, but I don't think it's necessarily...
Well, you don't want it to happen to you. But is there anything wrong? Do you think that there's anything wrong with that? And I'm not talking about an officer being a fucking asshole. I'm talking about an officer being professional, respectful, understanding that you have a right.
In a state like New York where the information's on your license anyway, no, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I don't agree with it necessarily, but I don't think in this situation there's anything wrong with that. But in a state, let's just say, where you don't need a permit to carry a firearm, like Texas, constitutional carry.
Right.
They're assuming then that the gun is stolen before it's proved not. If they were to do that, if they were to say, "Oh, I have a gun on me. Oh, we need to make sure it's not stolen." Well, why do you think it's stolen?
Do you think that it's a gray area for them to? Do you think it's really assuming that it's stolen, or do you think it's that the officers are saying, "Okay, you have a firearm on you. I know we have constitutional carry. The issue is not that you're carrying a firearm, but we do have a duty to make sure that your firearm is not stolen."
Okay, what makes you think it's stolen?
Correct.
Exactly.
I agree.
So that's the retort to that, and then that goes with any property.
That can go. Yeah. I was about to say that can go for a TV.
Right.
Hey, we have to make sure the TV in your car is not stolen. Why?
Why?
It's a fucking TV. It's in the box.
Did somebody say that I stole their TV?
Correct.
Exactly. Because a gun ultimately is a piece of property.
Yeah, and it also depends. I think if you're in a part of the country where they know guns are being run from point A to point B, the Iron Pipeline, for example, running from down south up to New York, where a lot of guns come from, do people along that route, do they know?
It's the circumstances. For example, if you are speeding, and again, how would they know there's a gun in your car unless it's searched or whatever, yada yada? But it's a totality of the circumstances.
Correct. Yeah.
It's what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, I just think like we need to be careful the way we read this article and we automatically think, wow, that cop fucking violated this person's rights. But did they really?
I think they did.
Well, we don't know. We don't have all the facts.
Right. We don't know the circumstances, but just on a basic level of an interaction between two people. You as not you, but the officer is an agent of the state, a public servant. This guy gives him a license issued by the state. In good faith and in good decency, this person, understanding the circumstances surrounding the stop, should assume that the permit is valid. Now, if he wants to then say, hey, for officer safety, we're just going to step out of the car. I'm just going to take the gun from you. I'm not detaining you for the gun. We're just going to get whatever we're done with the traffic stop. I'm going to give you the gun back. Right. I'm going to leave and then do what you want with it.
Right.
So that's how I, as a normal civilian, I'm not a law enforcement. I don't know the laws, especially in Connecticut. That's how I assume it would and should happen.
Right.
But this guy getting cuffed and searched and whatever, that basically is an arrest.
Right. Yeah.
So
I think once the cuffs go on the person, but because you can detain somebody, like I said.
Yeah.
When you're cuffed, you're put in the back of a patrol car, and then your vehicle is searched against your will for no reason, because then I think we get into the zone of, okay, this person can reasonably assume that they are under arrest now, right? Because they've now have
and
cuffs
the Fourth
on them.
Amendment is being violated.
Right, because they're I mean, an arrest is a Fourth Amendment issue. It's considered a seizure under the law.
Yes.
If you're arrested, it's considered a Fourth Amendment issue under the law, because it's a seizure.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say but you know what? We also have to look at it this way, right? Like the officer assumed, for whatever his reason, we don't know, assumed that, or had probable cause to believe that the license was not valid.
Mm-hmm.
So we also have to look at that. Up until he realized that the license was valid, then that's when the vehicle becomes unsearchable. Now, I think that the officer should have confirmed that the license was valid or invalid before he searched the vehicle. Right. So like, you can't just say, okay, well, we're going to look up the stats, or we're going to look up the information, but it takes 10 minutes. In this time, I'm going to search your vehicle. No, because now you don't know if it's a legal search or if it's not.
One additional paragraph I want to read from this. It's towards the bottom of the article. It says, in seeking to have the case dismissed, the police officer claimed that he was entitled to qualified immunity. In denying the officer qualified immunity, the judge concluded that, quote, no reasonable officer could believe that probable cause was present. Mm-hmm. So,
assuming, based on the
circumstances,
correct, based on what that judge said, then obviously, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, and people get really up in arms about
qualified
immunity.
So you're in law enforcement.
Sure.
Do you know what qualified immunity is?
Yeah, qualified immunity basically means that if you have like an accidental violation of someone's rights, that you have you're immune because you're a police officer and you were acting in good faith, right? So like, if you are running down the street and you're like, oh my god, I just got attacked, and you point to a guy and I go arrest that person, but you fucked up and that wasn't the right person to arrest, right? Now that person can technically sue me, but I acted in good faith because you had pointed that person out, right? So like, I'm covered, qualified immunity. When municipalities get rid of qualified immunity, that means now if you point that person out, that person's not the person, I arrest that person. Now I'm not covered. So that gets rid of police wanting or feeling like they're covered to do good police work. But some people think that, well, you know what? They should have never arrested that person unless they confirmed it. But you're the victim, right? So you're pointing that person out and you're saying that is the person.
Do you think qualified immunity should be something that should either be reformed or removed?
The problem is people use qualified immunity to protect them because they know that they have it. So like, they know that they could say, well, we did X, Y, and Z, but we're qualified under qualified immunity, so don't worry about it. The way that they reformed, or the way they wanted to get rid of qualified immunity in New York City, for example, it basically said that if you violate someone's Fourth Amendment rights, qualified immunity in New York City only, the way they, from my understanding, the way they repealed it, it only had to do with Fourth Amendment rights violations.
Okay.
So if you have a false arrest or you search somebody or something like that, then that would be considered obviously a violation of the Fourth Amendment, and then you would not have qualified immunity.
Okay.
It's hard because it's not black and white.
Right.
There are police officers who do good police work in good faith who now will be hurt by them not having qualified immunity.
Right.
They repealed it in New York City, but you're still covered under the state law and federal law.
Okay.
So if they bring like a civil suit against you in city court in New York City, you can't use the defense of qualified immunity under certain circumstances. If you're brought in state court or federal court, you still have it. Because there are laws, municipality law, I think it's 4K, still covers you under state law.
I feel like, though, it also depends on the circumstances of what was going on.
People just assume that, yeah, of course it does, but when you repeal laws, you don't have that ability. So this officer has qualified immunity, but the courts have said you can't use this defense. There's nothing wrong with that. Good officers still have the ability to have qualified immunity defense.
Right.
This officer was told that he can't have it by the judge.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things you hear thrown around in the media.
Yeah, because people assume that cops are covered under every single circumstance just because of qualified immunity. It's not the case. And what happens is it becomes a buzzword.
Right.
We have to get rid of qualified immunity. How dare you just be covered under everything? But that's not the case.
Right. It's
That's
good faith.
case.
If you wantonly and knowingly do something terrible,
correct.
You're not covered.
Correct. If you walk up to somebody and just fucking shoot them, you know what I mean? You're not covered under qualified immunity just because you're a cop.
Which is what most people think happens.
Correct.
Because they think cops are murderers.
Correct.
And therefore, if you murder as a cop, you're immune.
Yeah, I would say, and I always say this to people in regards to gun laws. I always tell people, if you're going to make an argument, you better fucking be knowledgeable in what's going on. Do bad cops have, let me put it this way. Have cops who have done bad shit skated through because of qualified immunity and the way they can explain shit?
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah.
But that's everything in life.
Right.
But there is a huge chunk, 99.9%, or I think it's like 90, I forget what the actual fucking number.
Overwhelming.
It's a huge number of cops that there's frivolous lawsuits, and that's what qualified immunity is really there to protect you from. Anyone can sue anybody.
Right.
So now you're taking away the ability for cops to defend themselves, where anyone can just say, oh, well, you know what, I'm just going to fucking sue you.
Right.
Because you don't have qualified immunity anymore. And then what?
It's kind of like in the gun world where the Lawful Commerce, Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, that basically prevents people from suing gun manufacturers for the misuse of their products. People want that repealed. That's a big thing with the anti-gunners now is we want that repealed. We want to hold gun manufacturers accountable. Well, because people misuse their products, is it their fault? Yeah. Everyone knows what a gun is for.
Right.
It's whether or not you use it in that way. Cars are the same way.
Right.
There was the new attorney, the new governor, the woman, I forget her name. Mm-hmm. They signed into law, I think yesterday or today, that by 2035, all new cars sold within New York must be zero emissions.
Okay.
So, but that doesn't account for used cars, out-of-state purchases or whatever. But, you know, it's just, if you misuse a electric or a gas-powered car, same shit. Can you sue Ford because somebody drunk drove? Right. If they really cared about people's lives, why don't they mandate that any car sold in New York must come with a breathalyzer installed? Right. Okay, it'll help prevent drunk driving, wouldn't it? If it saves one life, John. Right. If it saves one life.
I agree.
But they don't want to do that. So it's people have these protections for good intentions. If you're a gun manufacturer and you sell a firearm, a hunting gun, to somebody in good faith that they're not going to go out and kill someone with it, well, it's not their fault if somebody goes out and kills somebody with it.
But we need to look at not that we have certain laws, right? But why certain laws were passed. How was qualified immunity invented? Why was it created?
I don't know the history on that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't really know either. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, like, we're only looking at, okay, qualified immunity is a fucking problem, and, you know, cops use it to prevent themselves from getting in trouble. Okay, but, like, where did it come from? Right. Why do we have it?
Right. I think as a public servant, you need a little bit of, not leeway within the law, but you need to do your job in such a way that, you know,
when you're dealing with things that are as fluid and gray area as, it's not as simple as black and white.
Right.
You know, like law isn't black and white. It really law enforcement. Let me put it that
law
way.
enforcement.
Right? Laws
is black and white.
Laws can be black and white.
Right.
But law enforcement, not necessarily. You're talking about things that change from 1 second to another.
Right.
Now, when you're dealing with things that change from 1 second to another, mistakes fucking happen.
Oh yeah,
mistakes happen.
Like, you remember that video that was that came out recently in Florida, Brevard counties, where the guy hopped out of the back of that car and started shooting at the cops?
No.
You sent
the
me
one
the video.
I sent you?
Yeah.
Oh, and the cop just fucking dumped 16 rounds.
Yeah.
You know, I saw comments that said that the cop shouldn't have shot that guy.
You know, and the head sheriff in that county came out and said, why did he shoot him so much? Because bad guys don't stop until they're dead or something like that. He issued a really bold statement. Yeah. But in that situation, one guy was handcuffed leaning up against the car, I think, and then they were doing their paperwork or whatever, and then some guy just hops out of the back. It looked like an AR pistol.
It definitely was an AR pistol.
So
shot at the cops.
Yeah.
Then the cops lost him. I don't know if you saw that video. You saw the
video.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you noticed in the video.
He went behind
the car. But the
car.
cops were looking toward the vehicle, and the guy came around the back of the fucking car, shot again. Through one of the cops fell to the ground, and he started beating him with the butt of the gun, and another cop just came out of nowhere.
Well, the perp was shot in front of his car in the leg.
I saw
that. And then he came around the back of the squad car. But
first of all, it's a fucking miracle that a cop wasn't fucking killed.
I know.
That,
you know what?
Okay, that. Let me start with that. That's a fucking I'm impressed.
Oh, well,
that fucking the.
I'm very thankful that a cop was.
Well, I mean, they.
But you know what? You get into a situation like that, and we're talking about fluid changes. Correct. 1 minute you're just doing paperwork on a normal traffic stop. The next you're fighting for your life.
Yep.
At that point, should you be worried? Oh shit! What if I shoot this guy? Should I be sued?
Absolutely not.
No, exactly. It was sarcasm in that one.
Right, and that's the whole thing. You don't have time to think about what's going to happen a year, 2 years, 3 years from now.
Right.
You don't have fucking time. You have a guy who's fucking shooting at you. You have other people who are in the vehicle. Who knows how many more people are in that vehicle with firearms? Right. There's so many things. Humans can only process so much fucking shit.
Right.
You have somebody in front of you who's shooting at you. You have a cop who was shot.
Yeah, he was shot. He made it, though.
You have a man on top of another cop beating him.
Right.
You can kill somebody just hitting him with a fucking gun.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yes. Obviously, that shooting was fucking justified.
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes it takes 16 rounds to fucking stop somebody.
I don't think that they should be prosecuted.
They're not going to be.
No, I know, but what I'm getting at is some people
be sued.
Some people think that they should be.
They will be sued in civil court.
Yeah.
They're not going to. Yes, and some people who. But you have to understand a lot of these.
Why'd you have to shoot him so many times?
Yeah,
but shoot him in the leg.
But these people don't. He was shot.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was just about to say. That's what I was just about to say. He was shot in the leg.
He was shot in the fucking leg.
Good work. In the leg. Good work. Oh, I tried it your way, lady. Now we're doing it my way. So fuck off.
I saw that video and that guy fucking mag dumped. Look, I don't want anyone to die ever.
No.
But when you're innocent, dude, I don't want.
No, I'm just saying, you don't want anyone to die. You don't want anyone to die over butt in this case.
No, that guy, look, dude, if that guy sealed his fate when he jumped out the fucking car with a fucking AR pistol and started shooting at cops, right?
Definitely.
We need to be looking at not how the cops reacted. We have to be looking at what the fuck started. Why did this guy jump out the car and shoot at cops?
Was he a wanted felon?
Dude, once you fucking open that can of worms, how can you say
life and death?
How can you say exactly? So if the cops stood there, you don't think the guy would have killed them?
Oh, definitely.
Of course he fucking would have.
You
so
shoot
what?
At somebody,
right?
You're intending to kill them,
right?
Hands down.
Jesus, man, I wish it didn't. I wish it didn't end that way. I wish that guy didn't jump out the car with the gun and fucking shoot at the cops. But you know what? He fucking did.
Right.
He did. And you have officers who are. You have an officer who was shot. You have an officer who's fucking getting beaten, possibly to death.
Right.
What happens if that guy got shot in a part of the body where if they wrestled that guy off of him, he would have bled out and died.
Right. Right. Yeah, man. It's
one of those things. People look at these and just go, "Oh, these fucking cops just want to kill another person." No.
Or they'll just show the last few seconds of the video where the officer unloaded his service weapon into him and say, black man gunned down by 16 rounds by cop on the floor.
Right.
They could spin it any way they want. And this harkens back to what we were just talking about, fluid situational changes. Right. And how you shouldn't, when you're in that position, you shouldn't be thinking about, oh, am I going to get sued?
Right.
No, it's life or death.
Cops, I don't think cops do. You know what? I think when cops get really badly hurt or killed, I think that's what they are thinking of in certain states. Yeah. When cops make bad decisions on the street, I think that is part of it. is because they think to themselves, oh, if I do things the way I think they should be done, or the things that are going to make me the safest, that, yes, I'm going to get in trouble.
Well, that's why there's a lot of hands-off policing nowadays.
Right.
That's why you see...
You are 100% correct.
You see the rate at which crime has spiked, especially in areas like in Minneapolis, where the whole George Floyd thing happened, where they disbanded the police. Okay, hands-off policing, yet the murder rate like skyrocketed. Right. Portland, they're firebombing police stations. People were getting killed in that Chaz zone because of hands-off policing. Chaz. Yeah, I know. Remember when that was a thing? Oh, God, 2020 was fucking weird.
Stupid. But I think that's a thing, and I think that gets people hurt.
Yeah,
it gets officers hurt, and people will say, "Well, you know what? That's what they signed up for." No, that's like saying like when a fucking plane crashes, like, "Oh well,
that's what the pilot signed up for."
The pilot signed up knowing that his plane crashed.
It is a risk. It is always a risk. Just with anything you do, you get in your car, you get on a motorcycle, you go swimming in gator country. It's a risk, obviously. And being in law enforcement, you have a higher risk of something happening to you. But nobody should go to work expecting to die.
Obviously.
And the left uses that argument, nobody should go to school and have to face down an AR-15. No, they shouldn't, because killing people's illegal and killing children's illegal.
Correct. And I also think that it's the state's responsibility. If you're going to mandate someone goes to your school, it's the state's responsibility to protect that child. Yeah. There should be fucking armed guards at every fucking school.
Yeah. I mean, whether it's passive or overt, to some degree. I think that it's a personal decision.
I don't know what high school you went to, but
I went to the one that, where I went.
No, where'd you go? Oh, you went to... Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, with a certain...
Yeah. One of my ex-girls. It's a funny story.
Yeah. It's
Let's tell the story. So I dated a girl. We won't say any names. I dated a girl who actually went to the same high school as you, and I...
she was a little younger than me. John's like a year or two younger than me.
This is before I knew Taylor.
Right.
It's crazy.
And it's a small island we live on.
Yeah, she did like the school plays and stuff.
She was
like
in the drama department.
Yeah. And I saw her in one of the shows, and I saw this fucking guy. We went to one of these shows, and I saw this guy playing guitar. And I'm like, oh damn, he's got like long, nasty hair.
Oh, fuck you! My hair was beautiful back then.
It turned out to be Taylor all these years later.
Yes, I had crazy. I had much more hair than I have now. I used to have long, beautiful, flowing hair.
Yeah, it's just weird, man. Like how like I knew. Not knew you.
You knew of
but like
me.
I knew like I've seen you.
Right.
Like I've seen you. I knew the people you knew.
I know.
Like I dated somebody you knew.
I know.
Never met you, and then like years later.
Right.
That's man. I love that shit.
Well, it's weird because years later you didn't even know me, but you got linked up with our mutual friend.
Right.
And that's how then you met me, and then you're like, oh, I remember you from high school, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was just, it's just one of these really just small world fucking just interconnections and cosmic linings and chakras aligning.
Same thing with Joe.
Yes. Oh, that's weird. You got to tell this story. All right, so
it's a long story, but I'll tell it. I worked for a chocolate store, and the person who owned the store, he had a buddy. The buddy's father passed away, and I was tasked with bringing a box of chocolate to this person's house. So he gives me the address. I go to this person's house. His name is Gary. So I go to Gary's house. I knock on the door. This is the address I was given. Somebody answers. It's not Gary because I knew what Gary looked like. I was like, hey, I thought it was somebody at his house visiting him. Hey, is Gary here? Oh, no, Gary moved. Okay, no problem. Do you have his new address? Yeah, I actually do. Okay, give it to me. I went to Gary's house, dropped off. Shit. Fast forward, like 4 years? No, 5 years?
Yeah, it was,
Maybe, it was like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Taylor and I play in a band together, and Taylor knew this guy named Joe
through my job,
who plays bass. So we end up we're gonna go play a show, and we like bring all of our stuff to Joe's house just to like run through our set real quick and figure out some logistical shit, right, whatever it is. So I'm driving up to the house. I'm like, wow, this house is really really familiar. Walk in the house. Wow, this house looks fucking familiar. And then it clicks. I'm like, damn, I've been here before. And this was when I delivered the chocolate to this house, and it was like the wrong house. So I say to Joe, hey, Joe, like the guy who used to live here, was his name Gary?
And Joe's fucking face looked like he saw a ghost. He thought you were channeling the dead spirit of this fucking guy.
He didn't even say like yes. He was just like, how the fuck do you know that?
Oh my God, you were like Long Island Medium.
How the fuck do you know that? And I was like, do you remember like 5-6 years ago,
man,
a guy who knocked on your door, and
once was a legend of a
delivering,
man.
and delivering like chocolate to Gary when his dad died. And he was like, "Holy shit!"
Small
So
world,
he gets
man.
his wife, and he's like, "Do you remember?" And she was like, and she looks at me, she's like, "Fuck, that was you, dude." The weirdest shit,
Dude,
Like, dude,
I know.
like the fact that Gary lived there.
Right.
His father passed away. I had to go deliver this shit. The guy didn't know that he had moved.
Yeah.
I go to that house. I see the guy. They had just moved in,
Yeah.
And then like 6 years later, end up back there again.
Right.
It's just like one of those weird, like Long
Twilight
Island weird,
Zone,
dude.
yeah.
That's like bizarre.
His
And-
face was fucking priceless when you
Yeah,
said
dude.
that, dude.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
it's just one of those weird things, man. Like who? And then like you end up working with him,
right.
And then all these years later, like I end up back at the house. And it's, dude, like
Small
so
world.
weird, like the weirdest shit ever.
Yeah, I know.
That was weird. That was like one of those things.
It was weird. That was wild. Yeah. So John and I have had a history of paths intertwining long before we were.
It's amazing, man.
I know.
It's fucking amazing how like our paths have crossed before, and then finally like we come together, and now you're one of my like really good friends.
Yes.
So it's amazing, man. You don't know like shit like that is just so weird.
Bro, it is.
But really quick before we before we move on or before we end, I want you to tell the story one more time because we were talking about this about the time that you were disarmed by the Suffolk County Police Department.
It was the Suffolk PD and the National Guard.
Right.
So what had happened? See, what had happened was I was.
Let me start from the beginning.
Hurricane Sandy 2012. I've told this story before, but I'll reiterate it. Not one of my. And I look back in hindsight. And I was like, it was really dumb. And not that it was dumb, but it wasn't the best decision
It was
to make.
unprecedented times.
Right. So I was working at a 7-Eleven, and shit was going south, no power in Suffolk County. And my boss was like, hey, could you, like, bring around a couple of your guns, whatever, and just hang out at the store, make sure that nothing happens. And I should have been like, no, because obviously it's not my fucking store, and I got paid shit. But I'm like, you know what? All right. Because it'll probably help keep the neighborhood because I live very close to the store. So I'm like, all right, it'll probably keep some riffraff out of the neighborhood looking to do some shit, whatever. So I came there with a few firearms, and me and some coworkers were sitting there, and it was dark in the store. We had some candles lit, and I see Humvee and some Suffolk PD cars pull into the parking lot. I had a gun slung over my shoulder, and I kind of walk outside. I'm like, hey, you guys want any water, drinks? If you guys come in, grab whatever you need. And not that I thought the gun on my shoulder was a big deal, but I didn't realize that it's kind of like you don't think it was there. Like I kind of forgot about it, or like I didn't think it was a big deal.
Well,
I was
like
just
slung over the back of you,
right.
right?
It was
it's not like it was
slung
around the front of you.
It was slung old school over my one shoulder, pointed upwards.
Okay.
So that's how it was. Just
Gotcha.
not low ready, not high ready, just back behind me.
Right.
Cop said,
Did they draw down on you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cop pulled out his gun, and he's like, I forget exactly what he said, but he's like, you with the firearm or something, put your hands in the air. I'm like, oh shit, you don't have this gun on me.
I mean, it's not every day that you're met with like a guy with like a gun.
Right. So I said, oh, okay. And I have my hands up. Cop comes over, takes the gun off me, lays it on the ground. Right. And my manager at that point comes out. He's like, hey, he's like, what are you guys doing here? He's like, oh, this is my manager at the time. It was his father's store. He's like, oh, it's my father's store. We're here just, helping people out in the community, giving them what they need, just staying open, whatever, just making sure nothing happens to the store. Right. And he's like, okay, go put the gun back inside. So I take the gun, I put it back inside. Mm-hmm. And they were just using that. Our parking lot's kind of like a meeting point, like whatever. And then they were going to go probably over to the next town over, which isn't the best area.
Right.
And so the cop was like, hey, yeah, like, don't like come out with a gun. We're dealing with a lot of shit right now. I'm like, no, I get it, of course. And you know what? I told him, like, honestly, I just had it on my shoulder. I didn't think it was a huge deal. I kind of forgot about it. My bad. And then we went on about it. But, in hindsight, I look at that and I'm like, all right, I was in a situation where, something bad could have happened. And obviously, I made the mistake of assuming that I had a responsibility to protect a 7-Eleven that wasn't even mine. Yeah. Or that, God forbid something were to happen, I'd put myself in danger.
We've talked about that before where I don't think you should have.
No. And in hindsight, I look back on it. I was younger, and I'm like, okay. I did feel that it did keep the community a little safer because at some point, some riffraff did come by, and they saw a bunch of us sitting in the store with guns, and they're like, oh, shit, man. Y'all, they got the guns. And
Did
then
they really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
My manager also had a dog, and the dog was barking. He was a good dog, but he could kind of... It was weird. This dog had like an intuition about him. He was the best dog.
Dogs can sense shit,
right.
man.
And so the dog was barking like, "Oh shit, they got the guns in there, y'all," and they left promptly. So it's just, but people that came in honestly didn't mind. Like the people just from up the block, "Hey, you guys got any water?" Or, "Hey, you guys got Band-Aids?" Or, "Hey, you guys got coffee?" Even just hot coffee.
Yeah.
So they came in, they saw the guns, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, good for you guys."
I will say, like after Sandy, because that shit happened in like October.
November, end of October, beginning of November.
It was fucking cold. There was nothing better than just hot coffee.
I know.
And I was dating, you know who at the time.
Yeah.
Won't drop any names, but not because of anything bad, just public, whatever. But and her family was actually because they were only like 1 or 2 blocks away from us, but the water had stopped.
Yeah.
So they had everything.
Your house was
they had electric, they had gas. Yeah, there was like 5 feet of water in our basement area. Not our basement, but it was like our den. You know the area. It's like lower. Half. It was like it's like half underground. Yeah. That area. It's like half and
like
half.
a den, kind of partially submerged.
Correct. It's a den that goes about 5 feet underground.
My house is kind of the same way.
Yeah, it's exactly like your house. And you guys had, your grandpa at the time had that much water too. He had a lot of fucking water, but they would like bring us coffee. Yeah. They would bring us like soup, and it was just like the best thing. Just have something warm, dude.
I know.
Something that always bothered me about that, not about them, but about the whole thing that happened is, it was so fucking cold. Our house was fucking destroyed. We couldn't live there. Yeah. I had a fire pit, enclosed fire pit, and I had made a fire, and I was just trying to stay warm. And the fire department for my town drove up, and they were like, "You have to put that fire out." And I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And they were like, "If you don't," it was like a fucking kid. And this is why I'm sorry, I don't like volunteer firefighters.
You mean the guys that drive like assholes? Yeah.
Right. And he was like, "Well, if you don't, we're gonna call it in, and like every fire truck in the whole fucking town's gonna come here." And I was just like,
"Why?
Fuck you, dude! Like, you're a fucking piece of shit." I'm sorry if there's any volunteer firefighters out there. Do not be a piece of shit to people.
We know the good work you do, but
yeah, thanks for like running into burning buildings.
Yeah, but drive like normal people.
But please stop. Like, just don't be like a young kid who thinks like he's got like big balls because like he's in a fire truck and he's a volunteer. If you want to be a hard ass,
did they give you a reason why?
Yeah, they were just like, you can't have an open fire in this jurisdiction. You can't have an open fire.
It's like, dude, my fucking house is destroyed. Let me have a fucking
So I just
fire.
like moved it to the backyard and continued. Whatever. But it's just like the point, But like I was saying, there's nothing better than just like a hot cup of coffee,
I know, man.
There's nothing better, especially when like all hope is lost, basically, and that's like what it was for a lot of people. Like, obviously, I knew like eventually everything would be okay, but like when you're dealing with like fucking destruction,
I know,
dude, it was bad. Me and my dad slept like. We slept in the house a couple nights with fucking shotguns next to us, and
I didn't have any. I always had a firearm wherever I was,
and a few blocks away from me, there was a looter who broke into a guy's house, and I think he shot him with a fucking 22 like in the ass.
Yeah, you told me about that.
So yeah, man, it was a crazy time, and there's this hot coffee, like you were saying, nothing better than that.
Yeah,
could really raise your spirits.
I know. Hindsight, man, you grow older, you grow wiser, you learn from what you've done in the past. And
I mean, look, I don't think you did anything wrong.
No, not wrong, but it just wasn't the best decision.
You just put yourself into like a situation. It could have been bad for you. Like if you had shot somebody, they're gonna be like, "Well, you were fucking protected." First of all, you're not allowed to really.
Oh, I wasn't.
Really, you're not allowed to use deadly force to protect property.
No.
So
no, and it was funny because there was like people. Like one of the guys was like taking pictures, and it was just funny, like just being in a 7-Eleven with a bunch of guns.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, listen, like I said, young, whatever, make better decisions about it. But, yeah,
you live and learn.
Yeah, you do live and learn.
But it's a cool story, nonetheless.
It is. It was interesting. It was definitely something to live through. I don't know what more to say.
Which, by the way, if anyone was affected by Ida or that other Henry. I hope everything is going well for you. I hope that everything ends up okay.
The worst part of Hurricane Henry for us was I have a lawn chair and that got knocked over.
Yeah, but Ida was bad.
Oh yeah, Ida was.
Ida was bad, and I know in the city there was a lot of flooding.
Oh yeah, dude, the subways.
I actually know people who lost their cars trying to go to work.
Ooh.
Dude, I know people who lost their cars.
Yeah, the BQE was fucking flooded. Yeah.
Yeah, And it's crazy because there was one guy I know who like got to the point where there was water and he called and he was like, yeah, I can't make it. And there was another guy who was driving and he was like, I think I could make it, and he like lost his car.
Oh, shit,
it's like, dude, it's not worth it. It's just a job, man.
Yeah,
like, what's the worst they can say?
Yeah.
But I felt bad for him. He's fucking. I love him, but yeah, he fucked up.
You're gonna be getting that new car check.
Yeah, pretty much. Hopefully. I mean, I think he had just bought the car, too.
Oh, man. So much fucking flood damage.
Yeah. I mean, it was like he took a picture of it, like, floating. And he, like, posted,
put a flag on it.
He, like, posted it, and someone was like, is that your car? And he was like, yeah. I was like, dude,
he broke a bottle of champagne on the side and set it off.
I was dying.
Anchors away, my friend.
Oh my God, dude! Like, what were you thinking driving into that? Like, it's just a job. Like, they'll be fine.
Sometimes it's deceptive how deep it is. Like,
yeah, for sure. But there was more than one car that was like floating. So like, there's no way you thought your car was gonna make it when you see like 3 or 4 or 5 other cars just like floating. But yeah, it's
a trap.
Yeah, I didn't rub it in too much, but I was like, what the fuck? But you have anything else to say about this?
No, that's pretty much it.
I think we covered pretty much everything for that.
I was gonna say it's the New York Criminal Attorney blog. That's where I saw it. The blog post was from the 12th of August, so not very recent.
I guarantee nobody. I mean, this is one case. No one else is gonna be talking about this.
No, but
it's
just
one of those things that like anybody
you
can
have
run
to think
into.
about. Yeah,
right? And I want to say like if an officer does this to you, don't fucking be combative.
No.
You will have your day in court and you will most likely win. And there's nothing worse than you being in court and them showing video of you being belligerent, because then they can use that against you.
Right.
Look, if you think your rights are being violated, save it for later.
There is a point though to where you have to vocally.
You can vocally say anything. Hey, officer, I didn't give you consent.
Right.
And
you have to say things for the record in the moment. You can't just sit there idly.
Right, but you also can't be like, I'm not getting out of the car.
Right.
Fuck you.
Right.
No, because they have the right to order you out of the car. And they can even use that. Okay, well, you know what? I ordered this person out of the vehicle. They refused. So that raises the level of suspicion, especially because there's case law saying that they can remove you from the vehicle. You know. So I'm not saying that we need
some people though on the flip of that.
Look, I'm not saying be a sheep and fucking consent to everything that they ever want to do to you, but there's a difference between saying, hey, I don't consent to this, just so you know, because everyone's got body cameras now, I believe, almost every department. Hey, just so you know, for the record, I see you recording, I don't consent to this search.
Right. And if you're going to be combative, you better damn know what the fuck you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's nothing worse than people spouting off shit and they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about.
You don't have a warrant. You don't have a warrant. Right. You don't have a warrant. It's like, dude, like, you don't even understand.
If you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, call an attorney.
Right.
You call an attorney in that moment.
They even, New York State and I think New York City even said, because you know how it said, like, somewhere, I forget where it says that people have the right to, like, resist against unlawful arrest, things like that. They even passed laws. Yeah, they even passed laws saying that you can't. Like, the way you would, quote unquote, resist the arrest would be you get arrested and you have your day in court and then you fight it there. This is how people get hurt, man.
Yeah, I know.
This is how people get hurt. You watch every video of something going horribly wrong on a car stop, it's because somebody was fucking combative.
I was watching just a quick thing. I was watching this woman, I think it was in New Mexico. She got pulled over bringing her kids to school or something, and she kept calling the officer a murderer. Oh, Did you see that one?
Yeah.
It was a Hispanic officer.
Yeah.
And she's like, you Spanish.
And he was writing her a ticket, and he was like,
for driving like with a cell phone or something like that.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you're a Hispanic murderer, you racist, bro, this.
That officer was so fucking professional.
And then the supervisor was there too. But it was an African-American woman calling him like, a murderer and a racist. Oh, I don't have to listen to you, murderer.
Listen, some people are just so hateful. And she was recording.
I know, because she was on Instagram Live or Facebook and just saying, I'm going to get one over on this cop. I'm going to call him a murderer. It's like,
That officer, and you know what? For all the officers out there, I'm sure there's got to be one or two like people who listen to us who might be in law enforcement. When you're met with some shit like that, and I know it's so fucking hard, trust me, because I've been there. When someone's in your face recording, and they're fucking trying to get a rise out of you.
You just don't
yes,
give it
ma'am.
to them.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right.
Blah, 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 blah. Yes, sir. Thank you,
Kill
sir.
Kill them with kindness, my guy.
Because when they play that shit, first of all, they're not going to be able to play it on the news against you, right? Because you were professional.
Right.
You got to just you gotta take a deep breath and you just gotta say, you know what, this shit ain't worth it.
Right.
Yeah, it's not worth getting into an argument. And to be honest, they don't want you to get into an argument anyway. I can guarantee, no matter what organization you work for, there's nothing they hate more than you're being recorded by somebody else and you're getting into a fucking screaming match with that person, because your body cam footage is not going to end up on the news. It's going to be their cell phone footage where you look like a fucking asshole.
Right.
If you're a cop out there, just chill. just chill.
Yeah,
and it's so, you know what, man? I know you've never experienced some shit like that, but it's fucking so difficult when someone's in your face screaming at you to just fucking be like, I'm chilling. but for fuck's sake, it's so hard, but do your best.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there's nothing wrong, you know, like, and they know that they're saying shit that's fucked up. Like, dude, I've heard some really fucked up shit.
Oh, I bet, man.
Yeah. So, whatever. Hopefully, you never have to deal with that. Any officers out there?
You know, I got thick skin. I don't care what people say about me.
You'd be surprised when they start bringing your loved ones into it and saying certain things, and you hear. You know, it's not about hearing it once. It's about hearing it every single day. When the person who's saying it to you right now is the 100th person this week to fucking say the same fucking horrible shit to you, it's fucked up. And you know, people don't understand that either. When they see cops snap and they're fucking yelling at people, they just say, "Oh, this fucking tyrant cop is fucking he's abusing his authority by." But you don't understand that there was 99 other people that he was perfectly okay with. Yeah. That he just fucking took it. And for a lot of it, the police departments don't look at that either. They just look at the one thing,
right? The
one time, and they punish you for it. And is it the right way to handle it? I don't know. Is it the wrong way? I don't know. I don't make those rules because that's way above my pay grade. Anyway, I don't know if you have anything else to say about this.
No, that's pretty much it, man. Just everyone out there, you know, hope everyone's doing all right. Yeah. Hope everyone is having a good time.
Yeah.
Hope everyone's safe. Hope everyone's, you know, not getting the Biden mandated, you know, fist up the butt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole... you know, I didn't want to get too much into that because I feel like sometimes we're like, we're the New York gun guys. It's like, and then sometimes we talk a lot about COVID and issues with that. Granted, it is a very pressing issue, but, you know, sometimes I want to take a step back from that because people deal with that shit enough. They hear it enough. They fucking see it on their social media. They see it on the news. And they don't come to us for that necessarily. Sometimes they want to hear our opinions on shit. But, like, you know, we all know Biden sucks a big one, and he's forcing this shit, even though he said back then, no, we're not forcing vaccine mandates. And then now he's like, you know, oh, the...
Listen, man, it's all about money.
It is.
It's all about money.
It is.
These fucking big pharma companies, they donate to the Democratic Party. So, yeah, there's a lot of money on the line. We're talking billions of dollars.
Shit,
you fucking kidding me? If there's half the country who hasn't fucking gotten the shot, probably more, if they could force another 2 shots on fucking even 30% of those people.
I also like how Biden says that, you know, he has the power within the executive branch to mandate all executive branch employees be vaccinated. Okay, that's fine. But Congress isn't part of that. You know, Congress doesn't have to get vaccinated. Right. Why? Because they're not part of the executive branch, but they're part of our government. Right. If you're forcing it on certain people, why not force it on all you motherfuckers?
Well, I heard Congress wrote in, like, there was mandates, but there was, like, carve-outs for them to not have to get it.
It's bullshit, bro.
There's always carve-outs for them. I know.
It's bullshit. 'Tis bullshit, my guy.
That's for sure.
Yeah, but anyway, I think that's pretty much it, my dude.
Yeah, you want to do the outro?
Yeah, man. All right. Well, thanks everyone for. Hey, everyone. Thanks for checking us out. Whoa. No.
That's not how I do it.
I know. Thanks everyone for checking us out. Check us out: Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast information from. Everyone out there, if you like what you hear, share with your friends. Give us a write in. You know, send us a message. Post on our Facebook. I've been trying to post some more content on there lately. I believe that one of the last ones I posted was me shooting a full auto Polish AK-47. So go check that out. It's pretty rad. Anyway, thanks everyone and stay safe.